Well, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. I appreciate you like trusting me to come out. We've known each other for a little bit now,
Yes, sir.
but we haven't like hung out that much.
Yep.
So I have a lot of questions because I'm so curious about what it is that you do. So if you had to say what it is that you do, how would you describe it?
The short answer is I'm a record business executive. I'm in the hip hop space. I have one of the top streaming artists in music right now, and from an executive management standpoint, I'm involved in everything in his career and the record label that we have from A to Z.
Are we not going to name drop the artists or?
Yeah, we can. The artist that I'm associated with, or he's my partner. His name is Boogie with the Hoodie. His real name is Artist, and we have a record label with my partners QP and Bubba. QP is my blood brother, and Bubba, they all kind of grew up together. So we have a record label, record business, with Boogie being the biggest artist on the imprint.
Do you have multiple artists or?
Yes.
Who else do you?
Another act we have, his name is Don Q. We have an act named Booba Savage. It's an act named Anissa. Trap Manny. There's a few.
So it's my understanding, because I did a quick background on you, right? Because I'm curious to know you. And as I'm preparing for this conversation, I'm doing a little bit of research online.
Mm-hmm.
And you were born and raised in New York, is that right? Or,
Yes, sir.
But your background is from Ghana.
Yes.
Which is awesome because one of my closest friends in high school actually was from Ghana. His name was Kwaku. That's a very Ghanaian name, I believe,
yep.
right? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So I remember Kwaku. He was a really good friend of mine, and it's when you think of yourself, do you consider yourself like Black or African American? And is there a difference? That's like a weird term these days.
I consider myself both. If there's a distinction, right? I'm a Black man, obviously. African American, obviously, in the traditional sense of just a Black American, and in a more literal sense that my parents were born and raised in Africa and they immigrated to America. So I'm essentially like a first generation immigrant to this country, even though I was born here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I identify with all of the above because I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York, and I didn't go to Ghana until I was maybe like 7 or 8 years old for the first time. And then I came back to New York, and then I lived there when I was like 9 or 10. So I did the 4th grade in Ghana.
Mm. So,
I understand. I speak the language. I eat the food. I still have friends there. So I'm in tune with my roots, my African roots, but I'm also a New Yorker.
Yeah.
So it's very diverse. I would, in that sense that I identify as a New Yorker through and through, but I'm also African.
Because I've had a lot of people on here, and I've always found it that people that came from almost immigrant families end up being very successful. The way that they work and the work ethic is a little bit different. What do you think about that?
I think in many ways that's true. For all intents and purposes, there are a lot of people that immigrate here and become successful because they have a relentless work ethic. There's some people that immigrate here and aren't successful. You don't really see that because they're not successful. But I think that's true for not just Africans, but Asian Americans, Irish Americans. For the most part, this country is built on immigrants, right? So I think my opinion is, in order to actually make it from wherever country you come from, you kind of have to be a sharp person, right? it's not easy to make it to America with all the immigration laws and stuff like that. It's not easy to actually make it here. So going through whatever struggle you have to go through to make it to America, and then when you make it here to kind of like lollygag and play around, it's kind of counterintuitive. So I think those folks that actually make it as immigrants to this country, they realize the opportunity, and they don't take it for granted.
Because, I mean, at home, I speak Korean with my parents, mostly. I mean, they speak English. But I speak a lot of Korean at home. And with my wife, I speak a lot of Korean. And with my daughter, I speak a lot of Korean. And it's difficult because trying to kind of weigh like your cultural heritage and where you're from versus trying to kind of adapt and get fully immersed into like American society. It's like a really weird gap that a lot of people don't understand. But, first, second generation immigrants kind of have a better feeling of how do you gauge your culture from what American culture is, which is very different because Ghanaian culture is extremely different than U.S. culture.
Yeah, I think it's all about adaptation, right? And if you're in America, you have to adapt to what's going on around in your surroundings. We're all products of our environment, right? So I think if you're in America, it's imperative for you to adapt to how American society operates. If you're going to be in Korea or wherever your origin is, you have to adapt. If you're going to spend time there, you should adapt. As it pertains to children and stuff like that, you can speak Korean or whatever your origin language is to them, but the experience isn't going to be authentic until they actually spend some time there. And I think for me, in my formative years, spending time in Africa, in Ghana, shaped a lot of who I am today. So I think, if you're an immigrant, you have a child that was born here, I think it's imperative that you send them back home for some time to spend.
I agree. I mean, my daughter is, you just met her. She's very young.
Yep.
And we intend on sending her back maybe every year or every other year for a month at a time or something like that, just because I want her to understand, number one, how the world works.
Yep.
Get a feeling of, number one, appreciate what you have here. Because regardless of how well something is in another country, it's better here.
Yep.
and I think I come to terms with that every time I leave this country. Every time I leave the country, I'm like, America's the best.
100%.
Right?
100%.
And people here who don't travel internationally or just go to resort internationally never understand that. They don't see that.
100%. I have such an appreciation for this country and all the opportunities that are here. It's just, it's not perfect. There's some things here that, we wish could be better.
Of course.
But I think you could do a whole lot worse.
Yeah, I don't think people sometimes realize, like how amazing freedom is.
Yes.
Yes. So you grew up in Bronx and you went, so I did a little research and you actually went through school and you got your MBA. You were not originally in the hip hop world.
No.
So what were you originally studying? I want to talk about before hip hop.
So, in high school, think back to the late 90s when, you had AOL, you had dial-up internet.
Napster,
all of that stuff. I had my parents bought a desktop computer in the house, and we had dial-up. So I got sucked into internet very early. I was maybe like 10th, 11th. This is like 97, 98, 99. And I realized early on that I wanted to do something in tech. So I went to school and I started doing a computer science degree. And it was going pretty good. I took a couple Java classes, a couple C classes, and then when I got to calculus, it weeded me out, man. It got me out of there. So I remember I was on a bus one day with a classmate, and she was telling me about a major called Management Information Systems. And it was in tech, but, you know, the calculus requirement wasn't as stringent as, you know, for computer science. So I started doing some research. You know, I don't even remember that girl's name. She changed my life with that conversation. You know,
Shout out to you, whoever you are in the world.
So I started doing some research, and then I ended up applying for a Management Information Systems degree, and I declared for that. And then since I spent 5 years in undergrad, I added finance to it as well. And the combination of the two was a powerful tool for me to jump into the workforce. So, you know, I got my BS in business with the concentrations in MIS and finance. And I had some family members that were living in Chicago at the time. And the plan was never to go back to New York City, because I lived in a, you know, for all intents and purposes, a bad neighborhood. And I didn't want to go back to that environment. So the plan was to move to Chicago. And they ended up moving to Herndon, Virginia, which is right outside of D.C. It's not too far from Dulles Airport. And for those that are from the D.C. area, there's a highway called the Dulles Toll Road. And along that highway, there's a bunch of corporate offices. Like as you're going, like a 9-10 mile stretch, you see AOL, you see Verizon, you see this company, that company. So when I went to visit them in my last year in undergrad, I was on this road going to their house, and I saw all these buildings, and I said, okay, there's a job here for me. So I immediately went to careerbuilder.monster.com, and I updated my resume, and I put on my resume their address. So it looked like I was a local candidate. And my freaking inbox just, you know, they started reaching out. And I ended up grabbing my first job out of undergrad was with Raytheon, which is a defense contractor. I was doing some reporting and analytics for them. And then from there, I started working for a company called HealthNet, which is like a health insurance provider, not provider, but forget the exact term, but they do health insurance for the armed forces. So I did some analytics and database stuff there. And then I transitioned from there to USA Today, and I spent about 8 years there.
Wow.
So I was at USA Today and the parent company, Gannett, and I did analytics there. You know, I went there like in 2008, right before the economy went to, you know, and at the time it was transitioning from print newspapers to digital. And, you know, that business was kind of going down. And they were transitioning to having websites and stuff like that. And I built a lot of the analytics platforms, because now it wasn't about actually buying a newspaper. It was about the ad revenue that you can make on the website.
And maybe that's the moment that media in the world changed.
Yep.
You know, it went from printing news and headlines to how do we maximize ad dollars and clicks?
Correct.
It just happened like overnight, huh?
Correct. Yep. Because, I mean, you know, you got to find a way to make the money, right?
Always.
Is the whole business kind of flipped on its head. So, and, you know, I work closely with some of the people in upper management, you know, running reports and doing analytics for them that, you know, I learned a lot about that world, which ends up educating me on how to do things in music now, because Google and a lot of the players in that space are in the music space. Mm-hmm. So I had another stop at a nonprofit company. Then my last stop was with Discovery Communications, and I was working there for about 1.5 years, and then I transitioned completely into music.
So you did a lot of corporate America.
About a decade and change. Yep.
Fuck, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Do you ever regret spending your time there? Do you feel like you wasted time? Did you learn a lot? I mean, what is your overall feel on your 10 years of corporate America? Because I mean, you're talking like Raytheon. I mean, this is like
Yeah.
as it gets.
Yeah, I think I'm real religious, right? So I think God's timing is the perfect timing, right? So a lot of my experience that I've had in those different positions have lends itself to helping me deal with some of the things that I deal with on a day-to-day in my current endeavor, right? So I don't regret it. I mean, obviously if I knew what I knew then, what I know now, I'd probably be further along, right? But who's to say that I would get that information, that knowledge, had I not gone through some of those experiences?
So then, how did you end up in hip hop? Because it's a weird jump. It's an odd jump, right?
Yeah,
From working for Raytheon and USA Today to running a record label.
So, again, I think it's God had a plan, because I always knew that I was going to be wealthy, so to speak. I was not going to live an average life. So, I didn't know. I just didn't know how I was going to get there. But, I have a lot of wealthy friends. I had a lot of friends that were in music. And, I made a decent living in corporate America. Like,
I mean, those are big jobs. You probably made good money.
I made some I was successful. I didn't really want for anything when I was in those positions. The way the music thing happened, I had some friends in music, and on the weekend we travel. We go, like, I had a friend that was he was an agent, so he'd book shows, and he'd do a show, we'd go to the show. So just being around, being exposed to it, you just start picking up things. And shout out to J Class. He used to manage Cardi B early on in her career. So I was around and just picking up things, just not even asking questions, just picking up things just by being in the room. And around the same time, my younger brother and one of his best friends, Bubba, they decided to start a record label around a guy named Artist, who ended up becoming a Boogie. And they started to kind of anytime he needed something, he'd call me, and I'd call Jay. Like, if they needed a lawyer, they'd call me. I'd call Jay. Jay'd give me the lawyer. They'd do the contract, whatever. And then I kind of that's how it started. And I kind of just got sucked into it. And then there was a point where, they needed somebody to come in on the management side for Boogie. And I said, I'll do it, because I didn't really trust anybody else to come in and, because, at the time, these guys were young. They were like, at the time, Boogie was like maybe 18, 19 years old. And my brother was maybe like 23, 24. They were young. They didn't really have, they were smart. But, I, as an older brother, I didn't want anyone to take advantage of him. So I just stepped in, and then it kind of just grew from there.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Just literally walked into it by being around it.
I mean, in business in general, I think if you're walking in the right circles, there's a saying, if you hang around 4 billionaires, you'll be the fifth. Right? So if you're in a room with people that are doing something positive, it's only a matter of time before you kind of become that. You're all a product of our environment.
Yeah.
Right.
So how much thought went into it before, or how much struggle did you have being, like, I have this really cush job and going to almost a brand new artist at that time? It wasn't really big yet.
He was
trending. I mean, where was he?
He was trending at the time. He was a big deal in New York City.
What year was this?
This was 2016.
Okay.
So, I was involved from the very beginning. My brother used to tell me about it, and I used to just be like, yo, just be careful, I didn't want to, because, remember, I had spent about 10 years in the D.C. area. and he's in New York. So, you know, when I left to go to college, he was like 6 or 7 years old. So when I come back, when I decide to move back to New York and I'm around him, he's a grown man. You know what I'm saying? So we had to refigure out how our relationship was gonna be, you know. So I didn't want to be over heavy-handed with him. I'm like, yo, man, just do your thing. Just be careful, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, whatever you need, just call me. And, you know, for me, it wasn't a no-brainer because I had reached a point in corporate where I wanted to kind of work for myself. I started a consulting company, and, you know, I found that it was difficult to get clients, even though I had this, you know, as an employee, I worked for some of the biggest companies in the world, Fortune 500 companies, but that didn't necessarily translate to grabbing clients to kind of provide those services, those same services for myself, right? So I was already of the mindset that, okay, you know, I'm not gonna do this forever, because to go back, you know, the reason why I left Gannett USA Today, I had got my master's, my MBA, and I'm thinking I'm about to get a promotion and get bumped up. And, you know, once I come through with my degree, it's like, all right, let's talk, let's sit down. And I wasn't getting anywhere.
It doesn't work that way, does it?
At all. So I said, I'm not doing this. Like, you know, so then I started moving different jobs. And each job I would change, I'd negotiate, you know, 20, 30% raise in the income. So that was cool. But, and, you know, the way I had my stuff set up was, you know, in analytics, you know, once you set everything up, it kind of runs automatically. So my first month or two on the job, I'd learn what I needed to learn, set everything up. Then it's on autopilot. I sat in the office all day. I didn't do anything. So I had time to, you know, work on music or work on other endeavors. So I was already transitioning into that, right?
Without even realizing it.
Correct. So, you know, when the opportunity presented itself, you know, I did it for free. I didn't even want no money because I still had a job. So I was just like, you know, let's just do it. Let's see where it goes. You know, worst case scenario, I'll fall back into my cushy corporate job. Even now, like if I wanted to go back and work, I could do. I have the resume. I could go do it. So it's just like, all right, you know, I know being in that position, you know, the network that opens up to you is priceless. You know, there's some people that I can call, that I can talk to, that I never imagined I would be able to talk to them whenever I felt like calling them. You know what I'm saying? And outside of the money and outside of everything else, I think that's the most valuable piece of being in the entertainment business, you know. The network.
So when you joined in on the team, I mean, what's it like? Because you have your younger brother, and all of a sudden you're sitting there, you're giving your 2 cents, and they were calling you, asking for advice, but now you're like a part of it.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, it's different, right? And it's hard working with family.
It can be, but I'm an easygoing guy, right? I don't have much pride when it comes to certain things. You know, those guys are in charge. I take direction from them. I can give my input, but I ultimately take direction from them because they built it, you know, and although I had some influence, that's their thing, right? So for me, it was just adding value wherever like filling gaps. That's what it was about. And, you know, the artist is the artist. You know, it's my brother and Bubba, they're in the studio. They're like, you know, the business aspect, even though my brother does a lot of it, we do it together. You know, he wants to be in the studio. Like, he wants to be with the artist. So a lot of the business stuff, I would have those conversations. He'd loop me in with people and I have the conversations. And, you know, I would deal with a lot of that stuff. And it happened over time. When we first started, he was like, you know, now we have so much trust between each other. I try to grab him like, yo, let's talk to this person. He be like, yo, you handle that. Like, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, it's like any relationship, you have to build trust. So, you know, we built trust amongst each other, and we kind of just fill in, everybody kind of fills in whatever role that they have, And that, so for me, it was easy, It wasn't necessarily a difficult thing because I wasn't trying to come in and do what they already were doing. I was just trying to come in and fill in whatever gaps, whatever slippage that might be there.
Do you feel like when you're out with them, do you still feel like you're the older brother?
Yeah. When we're out, they're all my brothers, right? So when we're out, God forbid if anything happens, I'm the oldest, right? So, my mom, if something happens to my brother, my mom is I'm the first person she's calling. If something happens to Boogie, his mom's calling me.
Calling you.
Same thing with Bubba. So it's like I carry that responsibility, right? So and I take it seriously because outside of everything, hip hop can be a dangerous industry. So, it's important that everybody, not just the artists and people in management or executive team, anybody who's with us makes it home. Because I don't want to have that conversation with anyone's family. You know what I'm saying?
Completely understood. Something that I noticed that I'm just curious about. You said a Boogie's name was originally Artist.
His real name, his parents named him Artist.
That's crazy.
Man.
They knew.
They knew.
How do parents know?
I don't know, man. When I first met his mom, I said, man, Miss, her name, I don't want to say her name, but I said, you named that boy right.
Yeah.
The man's name is Artist. Like, he's an artist. It's just, again, I'm very religious, and I think God has a plan for everyone. And if you trust and if you're faithful, you'll reach whatever destiny he might have for you.
So then what triggered the name to change? Like, how did that happen?
Because
I think the most common place people would run into a Boogie's music right now is TikTok. He's everywhere. Like, you can't open your TikTok without one of his songs on it, right?
Yep.
What happened? How did he change his name?
So there's a movie called Paid in Full, which is based in Harlem. It's based on the life and times of some young Harlem guys that they were in the drug business in the late 80s, early 90s. And there's a scene in the movie where one of the characters, his name is Ace, I think. And someone else in the movie was like, "Hey, Boogie." Like, he kind of took that and did a play on words and called himself Hey Boogie with the Hoodie. And it's been his name. I think at some point, if you follow his career, like his first mixtape was called Artist. And then the first album was called The Bigger Artist. So there's always a play on his real name in the music. And there's just like a duality between A Boogie and Artist. So I think at some point he'll transition to just Artist. But for right now, he's A Boogie with the Hoodie.
Because it was A Boogie with a Hoodie. And then when I hear people refer to him as A Boogie.
Yep.
So slowly dropping one thing at a time and then maybe just Artist afterwards.
Yep.
Interesting. So you just got back from tour with the whole crew.
Yep.
You're talking with all the artists, your family, like your brothers, and everybody.
Yep.
How many cities you guys hit?
We did 17 shows across the United States and Canada, and we were on a bus, so we stopped probably 20-something cities.
So you guys all get into one bus, multiple buses?
So we had 3 buses. Yeah, nice buses, bunks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And we were just rolling, man. We started in Denver. We started in Denver. We flew to Denver, and then we had a show in Iowa. So if you know geography, Denver's further west than Iowa. So we flew to Denver, then flew to Iowa. And then from Iowa, we flew to Oakland. And when we got to Oakland, that's where the buses picked us up, and we rolled on the bus for the rest of the run.
What is that like? I mean, how many guys were on those buses?
So we had about...
How deep were you guys rolling?
20-some people. 20, 25, 28, something like that.
And how many weeks were you on the road?
About 4 or 5 weeks.
What is it like rolling with the same 25 guys for like over a month? That's gotta get hectic. It's gotta get stank.
Well, I mean, you know,
a bunch of guys in 3 buses.
We're adamant about showering, right? So, you know,
Yeah, you have to hold each other accountable to that.
man. Because like, you know, the bus driver can only drive like 8 or like, there's a mileage and a time limit, right? So we have to stop pretty much every day we have to stop. And when we stop, we get some hotel rooms, and everybody needs to go shower, do their thing. And then, you know, while a bus driver sleep. So we be on the bus, get off the bus, first thing, go brush your teeth, go do what you got to do, take a shower, then we get the day started. So, you know, that's how it was. I mean, and, you know, we're all family, right? So it wasn't really much. There's no conflict or anything like that on the bus. Like we're happy to see each other. We don't have there's no bad vibes. I got a really good group. So, you know, get to the city. If it's a show day, you know, my production guys, they go to the venue first thing in the morning, do what they need to do. You know, the artist does what he needs to do, gets himself ready for the show. I do what I need to do. We do the show, get on the bus, roll to the next city. If it's an off day, we'll stop, lounge, hang out. You know, they'll go do bowling or play basketball or whatever, shower, get back on the bus, roll to the next city. That's how it was for about 4 or 5 weeks.
People assume that life on tour would be super glamorous.
No.
Is it not?
No.
You know, like when I envision what people would think life on tour would be, it's a lot of partying. It's a lot of late nights. That's what I would think people would think. That's what I would think it is. What is it really like?
So, you know, you have shows, you have parties and stuff like that, but it's a grind, man. The travel, like, you know, you hear people that say they love traveling.
No. It's not the same type of travel.
You like, you know, actual traveling and moving is hard. Like, especially if, like, you know, early flights, you know, you stay up, you know, you have a show, then an after party, then you go back to the room, get yourself together, pack your bag. Now you're on a bus. The bus got to roll. Like, I was sleep deprived, man. I couldn't sleep. And when I did get sleep, you know, I'm up all night and my phone starts ringing first thing in the morning, 8, 9 a.m. So it's just, you know, it's a grind, you know. It's not the easiest thing to do. Now, don't get me wrong, you have some great nights, there's some great cities. But then some cities aren't. There's not much going on. We are the party when we roll into that city, right? So, you know, that's just, you know, you have some of that. Then you also have things that people don't see. It could get boring, it could get mundane. You know, you have all of that. It's a little bit of everything.
So with 20, 25 guys, 3 buses, getting moving can't be easy.
No, it's like herding cats, man.
Who's in charge of getting everyone moving? And it's like, I'm leaving you motherfucker behind. Like, who's doing that?
So I have a road manager, I have tour manager. You know, they're responsible for the crew, right? The production guys, you know, at the end of the day, you know, there's a job to be done, right? So the guys know that they're pretty responsible. Like, they know they're getting paid to be on the road. So if you say the bus is rolling at this time, and if you're not on that bus, you're gonna get left, and you got to find your way to the next city or get replaced.
Have you ever left anybody?
Not on the production side, but on the artist crew side, I have.
Really?
You know, I think for me, you know, if the artist is ready to go and you not ready to go, you in danger of getting left.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Unless you're like you know, even me. If he's ready to roll and I'm not there,
they're leaving you.
They have to leave me. You
Really?
know what I'm saying? So I think you have to hold yourself accountable. You know, I've left a couple of people, they were mad at me, but
I mean, I can't imagine. How do they have to just rent a car?
You rent a car, get a flight, you know, you
just figure it out.
Figure it out because, you know.
Do you ever go back to pick someone up?
Absolutely not on the bus, because the bus driver has the route is set, and it costs money to kind of turn around, and you got to find your way to the next city, or we had to replace you.
What's your favorite city that during this tour? What was the best city that you guys went?
It's New York City.
I saw you guys at Barclays.
Yep.
And it was packed.
Yep.
Lit.
Yep. The New York City is home. You know what I'm saying? And we don't play that market as often as you think. So to be able to play that market in front of friends and family, business partners, associates, and to feel the love from the city, is priceless. That was that as a team we've been working on doing a headline arena play in New York City for some years now. It would have happened probably in 2020 had COVID not hit. But, because of COVID, it kind of threw a monkey wrench and everything, and we were able to do it this year. And it's a huge accomplishment for us because, and he's done arenas in other cities, but there's no place like doing it in New York.
So we mentioned quickly, but TikTok. A Boogie is on TikTok a lot. I heard, and I don't know if this is true, maybe you can correct me. I heard that every time someone uses your music clip in a TikTok or a reel, it counts as a download. Is that right?
The economics of TikTok is still, and this is bad, it's still unclear to me not because I haven't tried to figure it out, but it changes. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, all the DSPs, which are digital service providers, TikTok, the rules change constantly. So, it's important to it's important to kind of keep up with it, but it's also difficult when you have a million other things that you're dealing with. I do know that there's an exchange of funds whenever a user uses your music on TikTok. I do know that. How much or what exactly it is, I'm unclear because the rules are constantly changing. And as you know, TikTok is not a U.S. company. It's I think it's Chinese.
Chinese company.
So that also gets in there too because it's not a U.S. company. So I'm not sure what the rules are. But I do know that there is some commerce happening anytime someone plays your music on TikTok.
I mean, how difficult it is because, artists and you guys as a label make money in multiple ways. You make money touring, you make money on the downloads, you make money on selling albums, although people don't buy albums as much anymore. Where do you think most of the money is coming from?
It depends on what side of the table you sit on. I think the major record label, by and large, get their money from the digital service provider and the exploitation of the copyright. Because most record deals that you're going to enter into, unless you're coming in with a huge amount of leverage, the record label is going to own the copyright. They're going to own the master of the recording, and they're experts at the exploitation of that master recording. So on the major record label side, the lion's share of their revenue comes from the exploitation of new and old master recordings.
Because you are your own label.
Yes.
So you don't have to service the major labels.
No, we do. So the way it's structured, Highbridge, the label, is what's called a production company. It's a record label production company. But then we have partners. We're partnered with Atlantic Records. And Atlantic,
they run your distribution. Correct.
They run distribution, marketing. They have a heavy lift because they can. Their business is scalable, so I think, we have a partnership with them, and they have their role, we have our role in it, and to date, we've been very successful.
Because I mean, you use that word exploitation, right? And used it multiple times.
Yep.
Can you like help unpack that a little bit? I mean, what do you mean by that?
So,
because that's almost what Kanye was saying, right? That they were that the major record labels and major producers were taking advantage of the artists. I feel like that's one of the main things he was talking about. I mean, he had his kind of other rant stuff, but that's kind of where he started almost.
Yeah, I think everyone has a point of view, and you know, depending on where you sit at the table, you're gonna have your point of view of things. You know, I think ultimately, you know, so to answer your first question, exploitation, you know, DSPs, the digital service providers, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, etc., Amazon, they pay the record labels so that your music or the music that they own can live on their platform.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, Jay-Z's albums weren't on, or some of his albums weren't on Apple Music. They lived on Tidal because that's his platform. You know, they recently De La Soul, which is an older hip hop group, they just made their music available on DSPs, right? Because they were in I don't want to misspeak, but I want to say they were in a contract dispute with their record label, and they didn't make it available, so the record label couldn't exploit or couldn't make money off of those master recordings by putting them on the DSPs. So the DSPs pay the record labels, and when that money comes in, based on your agreement with that record label, some of that money flows down to, you know, the production company and or the artist. Right?
You said and or
the artist. So like sometimes the artist is signed directly to the production company, and you know, the production company furnishes their services to the major record label. So the major record label pays the production company, and the production company pays the artist. Sometimes you could furnish the services of the artist, but then the major record label accounts directly to the artist and pays the artist directly, and then whatever portion of the funds that the production company is due goes directly to the production, so that the accounting is cleaner, and then no artist could say, "Oh, you're robbing me" or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it all depends on your agreement. No, each agreement is different. So, you know, that for all intents and purposes, that's how they exploit the master. Like even on the radio, you know, radio, TV, there's commerce happening, and though like if you're signed to a major record label, they know how to collect those funds. They get that funds that goes in a pot, and based on how your record deal is structured with them, you know, the percentages will flow down to all the parties. Right?
Do you feel like the accounting when they pay you is clean? Because you have so many different revenue streams, right? Money coming from literally everywhere.
Put it to you like this. You know, they send statements, however, like, again, based on your deal, they could send a statement every month, every 3 months, every 6 months, every year. I think it's best practice to audit your record label every now and again, because, you know, not to say that it's malicious, but it's easy to miscount something.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's important to keep that practice, because you never know. You might find $1 million somewhere. Somebody might have fat fingered something somewhere. You know, you might find it. You might not. You might find 10,000. It's still your money. You know what I'm saying? Based on the agreement. So I think it's best practice to audit them. To answer your Kanye question, and how he felt that, you know, record labels are taking advantage of artists, you know, I'll echo what I said earlier. It depends on where you sit. You know, record labels, you know, you take a major record label, at any given time, they might have 100 artists. And out of those 100 artists, maybe like 6 are profitable. They're losing money on 94% of the artists. So the successful artists subsidize the unsuccessful artists. So the profit margin, if you're successful, is gonna be larger because they have to take shots on smaller acts in order to,
to find the one that makes it.
To find the one that makes it. Now the problem is, it's like a loan. If when you sign a record deal and they give you an advance, which is an advance against whatever royalty you have negotiated, and give you that advance, the way they structure it, you have to sell a lot of records to recoup that advance. And if you show that you're able to recoup that, then they'll keep advancing you. And you're dealing with young artists typically. They have no real understanding of business. And then they may have lawyers and different people around them that are more concerned with themselves than the long-term financial benefit of the act. So, you run into certain issues when you're negotiating. But the long and short of it is, depending on how you structure your deal, you think of it like in professional sports. Your rookie deal is going to be low. When you prove yourself, then you could get a max contract if you're a max player. And that's kind of how it is. The problem is, your rookie deal can be long, and your shelf life as an artist might be within that rookie deal. Like, a lot of people don't make it to that next deal, and then, they feel the way about it. Or you might make it to the next deal and take a large advance, then it's almost impossible to recoup that advance, and now you're stuck in that deal. So I think in Kanye's, and I don't want to talk out of turn, but I think that's might have been what happened with Kanye. He got to his next deal, he took a large advance, and then he hasn't been able to recoup it. And now the record label, I think Universal, they didn't want to let him go or whatever. He wants to go and do his own thing. So I'm not a proponent. I don't want to say like I'm pro record label or pro artist. I just think it's a business and it's about leverage. And depending on how you structure your deal, depending on how much leverage you have coming into the deal, is gonna dictate how much money you're gonna make. There's a conversation about being independent versus being signed to a major record label. I think, if you're a good business person and you know how to scale your business and you know how to hire the different people to run the different departments and you have the funds to do that, to be able to scale your business, then more power to you. But most young acts, they're not gonna have that. They're not gonna have the wherewithal to do that. So, you go to the record label, they provide a service, and then they have those relationships, that can help scale your business, and you could become your celebrity will grow exponentially, and then you can leverage that to make money, right? Whereas if you focus solely on the royalty and what's made off of the record and the master recording, you may be leaving some on the table as far as building up your celebrity and leveraging that to make money. So again, like there's no one way to do it. You have to ask yourself, what's your mission? What you trying to accomplish? And then strategically back into that mission.
So if you could, because you're many years into this now, and you have a lot of experience.
Yep.
You've had time to reflect on decisions you guys have made.
Yep.
If you could go back, would you guys go independent or would you stay the route that you did?
I'd stay the route.
It's just
stay the route.
Having the comfort.
It's not even about comfort. I just think those record labels are powerful, man. Mm-hmm. Like for instance, they have the power to scale your business that, an independent act, as an independent act, at least from what I've seen, you can't do it. So let me give you an example. Drake is still signed to a major label. And Drake is the biggest artist in music, right? I think we can agree there, right? and he has money. He's a billionaire. Drake can go and theoretically he can go independent. Why is he still signed to a major record label? Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason. Because the value proposition that they offer, you can't get it anywhere else. And I think a lot of people miss that important piece. It's just, being able to negotiate it and leverage it in a way where you're okay with your portion of whatever the agreement is. That's the key. I think, that man is the biggest. If anybody could go independent, he could. But he's still signed to a major. That should tell you something. People get caught up in owning 100% of nothing as opposed to owning 10% or 15% or 50% of something that's very valuable.
That's an interesting thought because, obviously I've been working on this podcast and I always think, like, how do I make it grow? What's the best way to leverage it? What's the best way to market it? Because really, just like music, right? It's like a streaming service. You're getting more eyeballs. More eyeballs is better. And part of me is like, well, I want to do it completely on my own, be independent, do what I want to do at all times. And then there's the idea that, well, you can join groups or other podcasters or other networks of people. On YouTube, there's like networks, right, that you join and you cross promote each other. But you have to give up a little bit to do it. And obviously this podcast isn't big yet, but I hope that we would. And then there's going to come that time where you make that decision. And I'm interested. Well, I guess that's why I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on that matter.
I think generally in business, right? Again, I'll go back to religion, or just the belief in God. I think in the Bible there's a saying that when two people come together for a common goal, God joins them, right? Then you have the other saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I think those are all important concepts to grasp in knowing that, when you're making your decisions on who to partner up with. Now, everybody's not honest. You might pick the wrong partner and you'd be screwed. But, I don't think partnership is a bad thing. I think if you have leverage, if you're coming into the partnership with leverage, and if you're coming into the partnership with something of value and you can negotiate something that you feel good about. Like most negotiations, a good negotiation, both parties are going to be a little annoyed with each other at the end. If it's a good negotiation,
a good deal, both parties leave a little bit unhappy.
Correct. So I think, but when you take a step back, if it's a larger pie, you'll probably make more money, or you'll probably gain more from that larger pie than you would owning 100% of a smaller pie. And, that's how I see business in general. I think, partnership is something that, if done right, can be a powerful tool. You know what I'm saying?
How often does the major label have you collaborate with someone else? How much of that is them, and how much is it like, I want to work with this guy? Like, how much say do they actually have in what you guys do?
So again, that's all. It's all based on what you have in your agreement, right? In our agreement, we have 100% creative control. They can suggest things, but the artist decides what he wants to do and when. You obviously want to be good partners, and if they suggest certain things, you want to really look at it and see if it's something that could, because, if they feel like you're good partners, then they can promote, they feel like they have a dog in a race, and they'll promote you and they'll push it aggressively. Whereas if they feel like you're not being a good partner, they might just sandbag it. You know what I'm saying? So I think, to answer your question, on our situation, we have 100% creative control. But, if they have a suggestion or if they want us to do something, that's something that most of the time we'll do it. But we take it seriously, like, okay, let's see how this benefits what we're trying to accomplish, right? And, generally the record label, the artist, we all are aligned in what the goal is. So for the most part, there isn't going to be something where they suggest that doesn't really, they won't really, we won't really do, because we all want the same things. It's just how you go about that may differ a little bit, but.
So not everyone gets that deal where they have full control, creative control.
I mean, I don't want to say 100%, but most artists have, and I don't think the record label want to come in and be heavy-handed and telling artists what they can and can't do. Is their art. But, they definitely have suggestions, and, they definitely want you to try certain things. And it depends on your comfort level. They can't force you to do it, though. I don't think so.
When you guys get ready to produce an album, how much of it is just art, and how much of it is you have to think about the business aspect of it? Like, how do you balance the two? Because sometimes art is not what's most popular. And sometimes if you do only business, then people are like, oh, these guys are just kind of selling out. So how do you balance that?
So, in my experience, the artists that we deal with, we just let them go in and create. And then when it's time to collect the music and hone down, because, we might be picking from 100 different records. And then, we'll all sit down as a group. The artist will kind of pick what he wants, and then we'll all sit down and then, we'll pick like, all right, we should do this, we should do that. And again, we're all aligned, so most of the time there's really little to no conflict on that. And we always give the artist final say. The artist always has a final say on what they want to do. But, you have a collection of songs, and you pick what you think is going to make them. Because at the end of the day, no artist wants to be unsuccessful, commercially. If they tell you that, they're lying. You want to be acknowledged for your art. You want to be successful. So, they're not going to just put something out there for themselves, because if that's the case, they could make an album and listen to it for themselves in the house. If you're going to release it commercially, you want to make sure it's successful, and you have a team of people around you that's going to help ensure that. So,
Is there a song that you guys thought that this is not going to do well, that blew up?
Yes.
Which one?
I have me personally is a song called Secrets. It's on TikTok. I'm sure you've heard that record. When he made the song, there's no drums on that song. It's just a loop. I'm like, bro, I'm telling the producer, I'm like, bro, where's the drums? And like, yo, he's looking at me. He's like, yo, trust me, I got it. I'm looking at him. I'm like, I had to pick my battles, right? We all have to pick our battles. So he's like, trust me, man, just trust me. I'm like, all right. Put the song out. He shoots a video, and, the song does okay. And then sometime last year, it just caught on TikTok. Now the song is on its way to platinum.
Crazy.
It's like, bro, I tell him all the time, like, dude, I did not understand that song. It didn't make sense to me. But you were right. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I think you have to give an artist space to create. You know what I'm saying? I didn't understand that song.
Yeah.
I'd be the first to admit.
I wish we could play it. I think we get, which is crazy. I got you here, but I don't think we can play the song because we get copyrighted on it.
That song has no drums in it. It's just a loop. The lyrics are poignant, but it went crazy on TikTok, and now, it's a record. You know what I mean? So you never know, man. Like, some records you could just feel it, and it comes out, it does nothing.
Yeah, what's one song that you guys thought would be like, oh, this is the one, and then it just doesn't do as successfully as he thought it would?
He has a record with 50 Cent. It's called Yeah Yeah. It's 50 Cent and my other artist, Don Q. That I was sure was gonna be a missile.
Because it got 50 on it.
It just 50, the way his song sound, and when it came out, it's okay.
Really? What's it called again?
It's called Yeah Yeah.
Yeah Yeah. Hey, let's. I'm gonna go listen to that one later.
I thought it was gonna go, and it did okay, but you never know with this thing. You don't know what people are gonna gravitate toward. You know what I'm saying? And that's a microcosm of the record business. The larger record labels, they gotta take shots on a bunch of different artists. You don't know who's gonna connect, And, you know, in order to stay in business, you have to, you know, take those chances. It could be expensive. So then when you do hit, you got to make that money back and some profit in order to stay in the business. There's only 3 major record labels left. You know what I'm saying? You got Universal, you got Sony, and you got Warner. There were more than that in the 90s, but they all defunct now because one reason or another. So from a record label perspective, you know, I can understand some of the practices, you know what I mean? But I do think that, you know, certain artists should get more funds. Like when an artist proves themselves, we should be able to go back and redo the deals. And they do. But, you know, sometimes, you know, it's all about how you structure it though, man. I think deal structure and how much money you take up front versus how much money, you know, you leave on the back end, you know, that's gonna determine, you know, how happy you're gonna be. Because you might take $20 million up front, blow it through it, and then now in year 3 or 4 of the deal, you're unhappy. But bro, where's the $20 million? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Spend it.
Yeah, so, you know.
Because people don't return that money.
Absolutely not. Once that money hits the account, it's gone. You
gone.
can forget about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just all about deal structure and leverage and making sure you have the right people negotiating on your behalf.
I think we're probably right around the same age. I graduated high school in 2000.
Same here.
Okay. So you remember when you'd go out in New York and the kids would hit you up with their mixtapes.
Yep.
They'd be standing at the train stops, everywhere, handing them out. They got maybe playing in the background, and they would pull them out of their cars and they would do them to you. I don't think they do that anymore.
Nope.
It's all online.
Yep.
So if you're a new artist and you're listening to this and you want to get a deal, if you feel like you deserve one, but you're not getting the eyes, what would your advice to them be?
It's, you know, there's a saying, right? I hate to be so cliche, but if you build it, they'll come. Just build it, man. Get your team, you know, build your buzz, build your online presence, build up your streams. You know, when your streams get to a certain level, it shows up on analytics on all of these record labels. Just build it. You build it to a certain level, they will be beating your door down trying to get you to sign with them. You know, you don't have to. If it's just with anything, if you go chasing someone, you become less attractive. You make them chase you. So just build it, you know, and listen to your fans. They're gonna tell you what they like and what they don't like. So if you build it, they'll come.
Right now, there's a lot of ways for an artist to build, right? You have YouTube, you have TikTok, SoundCloud, things like this. They track all of it.
Everything.
So once you hit certain numbers, they're like, okay, hey, there's a guy, looks like they're doing over 1 million downloads now. Let's send someone out there to go check them out in person.
Yep.
And then they'll find maybe where you're performing or you're doing a show, and they'll...
Nope. Easier than that. They'll DM you on Instagram.
That's it?
Or they'll send an email to your booking email.
They don't even go check you out. They used to physically go and find out where you're recording or find out where you're performing, send a scout almost would sit in the background, take some notes, send it back to headquarters.
They'll DM you. Because they like if you're having traction, they'll DM you to send an email, and that's how they make first contact. If you're doing shows and stuff like that, after they've made first contact, then they'll come to your show and do all of that stuff. But typically first contact, email or DM or Twitter, DM, whatever.
So if you're sitting at home and you're a up-and-coming artist, or you feel like you're gonna be an artist, and you have your stuff online, and you're like, damn, my shit is so good, but I need to figure out how to get in front of them. The reality is they already know about you. And if they haven't contacted you, they don't want you yet.
Correct.
Right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, like it's unfair because I got to reach them. But you're saying that they know about you.
If you're trending a certain way, if you have a record moving on TikTok, or there's certain thresholds. If you blow through those thresholds, they know about you, man. And the higher you are, the more interested parties you're gonna get. You know what I'm saying? So it's reporting. Like there's analytics, that is research reports that these A&Rs get daily, weekly, monthly, that shows who's doing what.
And they're watching you to see which direction you're heading.
Correct.
Almost like a stock.
Yep. And then if the A&R personally likes your music, they like the direction, they might be early. You know what I'm saying? But remember, with everything, like A&R, if they sign you and you bomb, as an A&R, you can only bomb so many times before you're out of a job. So it's a risk for them too. So the way they insulate themselves is by coming through with the numbers, like, hey, this guy's worth doing X. And they know, like, all right, he's doing X. If we run him through our system, we can realistically extract X amount of dollars. They know everything before you even walk in the building. They know everything, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's sophisticated, like, they kind of know, you know what I'm saying? So
how much is a artist lifestyle looked at when they make those decisions? Because some kids will put all their stuff online, and maybe things that would be considered possibly controversial, possibly things that, someone may judge as, oh, I don't really like that he does that, versus how much they not care. Like, how much are they looking to the social aspect of it other than just music?
It's hard for me to answer that because I can't answer that in absolutes, right? I don't know exact, but it feels like it doesn't matter, right? I think if the music is performing and there are people out there that are looking to consume that music, I think that's where the conversation starts.
They don't really care as much about the other side of it. Because there's the argument that if you were to go out and be more controversial, you get more views. You get more views, you get more downloads. You get more downloads, you get more eyes from the record labels. It almost incentivizes people to act a fool.
Yeah. But at the same token, if the music is not good, it's not good.
Of course.
Right? You still have to have good music. Everything starts and ends with the music. You could be controversial, you could have all this engagement online, but if your music is not good and you put up a tour, nobody's gonna buy the ticket to come see you perform. You know what I'm saying? The music has to translate at some point. And if it doesn't, then you're just someone online that has a lot of engagement. Now, that engagement, you can parlay that into funds in other areas, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna be a successful artist or musician.
All fame is not the same fame.
Correct. And it gives you a leg up if your music is actually good, but it doesn't guarantee you anything.
So I want to transition into, I saw that you just came back from Ghana.
Yep.
And you were doing a lot of events there.
Yep.
What were you doing there? Number one, I guess, is the best way to start this.
So in Ghana, right, during Christmas time, a lot of people from the diaspora, so you have African people that live all over the world, they flock back to Ghana. A lot of Ghanaian people, they flock back to Ghana for Christmas to just hang out. And it's become sort of a hot spot in Africa during that time. I would liken it to like a spring break in Miami or Cancun. Everybody comes home and they just
from all over the world.
They just have a good time. And when you have that many people coming back home, you start to attract business and commerce and stuff like that. So tourism during that time of the year is a big thing for the country. And it's still a developing country. So for me, outside of just hanging out, it's about just making inroads and building a network there that I can leverage for business opportunities in the future. And that's pretty much all it's about. It's a developing country, and if you get in on the ground level, you can leverage that to become very wealthy.
How often do you go back?
I've gone back for the once a year for the past 2 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I need to find time to go back, but right now my calendar's a little hectic, so I don't know when I'm gonna be able to get back there.
Have you thought about getting a place out there?
I have. It's difficult because it takes a day to get there, or 12 hours. However,
there's no direct flight.
There is.
Okay.
It's a direct flight from here, and I think from New York City. The problem is just I don't spend enough time there to warrant the expense. And, outside of the expense, you have a house or you have a place, you need people to kind of check on it and make sure things, you know what I mean? I just don't spend enough time there. That's something that I'm working through right now.
It's almost like if you had a place, if you build it, they will come, right? If you had a place there, maybe you'd spend there more often. Is that something you'd like to do?
So,
like, how much do you want to spend more time in Ghana?
I'll be honest with you, man. We're both car guys, right?
Mm-hmm. There's no car scene there.
There is.
Okay.
There is. But from what I've seen, the roads aren't good enough right now for me to be able to, that's my escape, so to speak. So, until the roads get to a better place, it's going to be difficult for me to spend an extended amount of time there because, I have a high stress gig, and that's kind of how I'm able to dissipate that stress. If I can't do that, I'd be miserable. So that's the biggest reason why. I've heard that they have some great roads, but I haven't seen them yet. So until I'm exposed to them and I can see if it fits what I'm looking for, that's gonna be really difficult for me to live there or spend extended amount of time.
I mean, you can send like a Wrangler and go off-roading and do stuff like
Wrangler,
that out there.
G-Wagon, whatever, that a Hummer, that makes sense over there. But the type of cars I like to drive and the type of driving I like to do.
Yeah, not there.
Not there. Not right now.
Is it dangerous? I mean, probably in the main city areas, it's not that bad. But how dangerous does it get in Ghana?
Ghana's one of the safest countries in Africa.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And that's why everybody flocks there. You have people from all over the continent that come to Ghana to just hang out. Like, when I was there, I was with a big Nigerian artist, Wizkid. He was just hanging out. He's just him and the cameraman, no security or anything. It's a really secure country. They don't have much nonsense going over there. So
what do you think that is? Why are they kind of that way, or what do you think attributes to safety in Ghana?
I think the military and the police department, the government, they don't tolerate certain behaviors there. So when you go there, you have to be on your best behavior. You're gonna find yourself in a world of trouble. And the people there just they're not into the extra, like just cool people. They're not really just cool, So that culture of violence and crime. Think like there is some crime. I don't want to say it's crime free, but
everywhere in the world.
Yeah, but it's not a place where you'll go and feel like you need to look over your shoulder every day.
That's crazy, isn't it? That we live in America, and the best country in the world, but if you're walking around the city, you have to kind of always look over your shoulder. Any major city, you gotta be careful. Oh, maybe someone's gonna come snatch my watch.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I got some people walking behind me. Maybe I should, be wary. And then you go to countries where are considered developing or not as developed, and you feel so much safer.
Yeah. I mean, part of that is because you don't know where you are. So maybe the locals might not feel as
safe,
as secure in certain places. But I think again, like we mentioned earlier, America isn't perfect. But I take my chances here than more so than I would in other places, even other developed countries. Like there's a lot of as a black guy, I've been to Australia, I've been to London, I've been to certain parts of Asia. I'd rather be here.
U.S. is the best.
So yeah,
because they try to make it seem like U.S. is a really racist place to be, but if you traveled the world, it's the least racist place. Because I see it too. If I'm in South America, everyone's calling me Chino, right? Everybody. It's just what they do. It is what it is, and they don't even mean it in a poor way.
In a poor way. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just part of their vernacular. It's just they're not used to it.
Yep.
Certain parts of the world, they're not used to seeing a lot of black guys show up.
Yep.
So they may use certain words, but they don't necessarily mean it in a negative way.
Yep.
If anything, it's like, wow.
Yep. And then, you have people who may have had a negative interaction with someone, and then now they associate that negative interaction with the whole race.
Because that's the only interaction they've ever had.
Correct. Then you have to deal with that. But, by and by, I think United States of America, man, it's paradise compared to some other places.
So I guess as a closing thought, you are getting ready, you told me, to go on tour now in Europe.
Yep.
Where are you guys going to Europe?
So we're going to the UK. We're going to Manchester, Birmingham, England, London, England, Dublin, Ireland, Amsterdam, Netherlands, or Tilburg, Netherlands, Glasgow, England. I think that's it. About 7, 8 shows.
Are you guys taking a bus there too?
So we'll fly there, and then we'll have another
bus around for another 3 weeks.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
Where are you most excited to go over there?
London for sure. I think London.
And their hip hop scene is pretty big.
Yep.
They have a really live hip hop scene in London, from what I understand.
Yep. London reminds me of New York City. It reminds me of Toronto, Canada. Like, it just has that same vibe. And I think and we're doing a big arena there too, so I think that show's gonna be special. I can't wait.
Are there any European artists that you guys link up with?
Yeah, I was just texting with an artist. His name is Giggs. Him and his manager. Shout to Giggs, shout to Buck. And we were talking, and Giggs was telling me that he's coming to Miami during that time, so we're gonna miss him. But Buck is gonna be there, and Buck is good friends with Lambs and Idris and some of the UK actors and actresses that are making inroads in America, and something like Snowfall and The Wire and stuff like that. So I told him, bring everybody out. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna celebrate. So looking forward to that.
Awesome. Anything you want to plug before we kind of wrap this thing up?
Nothing, man.
You're so low key, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I like that, man. I think fame is I don't love fame, man.
Really?
I think
you'd rather artists be famous and you like being in the background.
Oh man, it's my safe space. It's comfortable for me because I just want to move around freely, man. You give up you give up some certain freedoms when you're famous. You're now public property. And Lord willing, if this podcast becomes a big deal, if you're in a supermarket and somebody wants to take a picture with you, you gotta take that picture, man. You know what I'm saying? It's
I'm gonna give him your number.
it's what you sign up for, right?
Yeah.
So, no matter how good or bad of a day you're having, right? So I just like anonymity, man. I like to be kind of move in the shadows. I know from a branding perspective, it doesn't necessarily help what we're trying to do, but I find comfort in just being just a regular guy.
So actually, I had a final thought then. So you said you're a very religious person.
Yep.
How much of that impacts how you live your life and how you go about your own business? Because being in hip hop and being a very religious person, there's gotta be a lot of times where you hit a crossroads where it conflicts with each other. You don't think so?
I think if you walk with a certain, I don't want to say righteousness, but if you just by default try to do the right thing and not try to take advantage of anyone, I think you're good. You know what I'm saying? If I'm a very I believe in fairness and treating people the way you want to be treated. So if I have to like get rid of someone, or if I have to scream on somebody for something, you know, if there's a conflict, I know in my mind I've done everything that I can to be positive about the situation. You've left me no choice but to become, you know, whatever negative version of myself I am in that moment, right? So I think ultimately, you know, if you just try to do the right thing on a daily basis, you know, I don't think it conflicts at all. I think, you know, the God of peace is also the God of war, right? So I think just in general, there's a time and place for everything. You know, you obviously want to lead peacefully, you want to lead the right way, but if someone leaves you no choice, then, you know, you
gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Do you guys, it used to be a thing before concerts, before basketball games, before sporting events, where the teams would get together and they would pray.
Yep.
Do you guys do that?
We don't.
Is that something you wish you did?
I'm a very visual person. I see it in my head that we're gonna pray. Then when we get to the venue, there's so much going on, man. It's so hectic. Like for instance, when we did the Barclays, right? Before that date happened, in my mind, I felt like I would grab everybody and say a prayer. Man, that didn't happen. This guy shows up like 5 minutes before he's supposed to go on stage. I got ticket requests. I got people trying to get into the building. I'm trying to rush him to the stage. It was none of that, man. So it's just so hectic that, you know, never in my mind I would like to.
Yeah. Because sometimes you reflect on old clips you've seen growing up.
Right.
And they always start those concerts
with a prayer.
With kind of that everyone huddles together and does this prayer.
Yep.
And every time I think of like artists coming out, I feel like people used to do that more than they do now.
Yeah.
I always thought there was something so like honest about that moment, regardless of what you believe.
Yep.
Just kind of people connecting and taking that one quick second of meditation almost.
Man, I've envisioned this in my head multiple times, but then every time we get to the show, it's never like that. It's so much chaos, so much going on that we never get a chance to.
Well, I hope one day you'd be able to do it because I think it's cool.
Yep.
Thank you for coming out.
Absolutely,
I appreciate you, Em.
Thanks for having me.
We'll leave a way to contact him if you need anything on the description.
Yep.
Otherwise, maybe we'll have you back on after Europe.
Sounds good, man.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right, man.
Awesome. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. That was fucking awesome, man. We went like